Good evening and welcome to the Monmouth City Council meeting for September 18th. I'd like to call the meeting to order and roll call, please.
Councilor Belts. Here. Councilor Carey.
Here.
Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Councilor Sharmer. Here. Councilor Schinkel.
Here.
Councilor Silvernagel.
Here.
Mayor Milligan.
Here. Would you all please rise and join me in the flag salute? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And that brings us to the consent calendar. Tonight we have minutes from the council meeting from September 4th and minutes from the council work session of September 4th.
Move to approve both as written. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, like sign? All right, those pass. On to reports. Tonight, I'd like to make an appointment to the tree board of John Boren. Had a good discussion with him, and he's going to be a great asset to that board. So, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Like sign? All right. So we've got a letter to get out to John, and I guess they've got a meeting this Thursday night, so he'll be participating right away. Also, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a little longer than that, a couple of meetings ago, we'd gone together to look at what the priorities we saw towards the League of Oregon Cities priorities for the next legislative session, and I got a response as to what the League's priorities are. So number one was their mental health investment. Number two was revenue reform and cost containment. Number three was housing, homelessness improvement. Number four was infrastructure, finance, and resilience investment. Number five was right-of-way and franchise fee authority preservation and broadband investment. And number six was the third-party billing inspection preservations. So I don't remember quite how that fell with what we suggested, but a lot of them we were on the same page with them, or they're on the same page with us. And with that, I'd like to move to reports of council representatives. So Councilor Belts.
There was no library board meeting this month, so I have no report.
All right, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
All right, we had our meeting on September the 5th, and what happened was, what the discussion of was that we have 2 to 3 people that are interested in starting historic preservation houses and qualifying for them. So this could be about 150 hours of work, and we're trying to get a grant to help pay for that too. Plus the Gentle House at Western is looking into it. We weren't concerned about the addition. It's the main primary house that would still qualify as a historic building. So that was the 2 big things. Another one was we picked out the spot for the sign, for the railroad sign behind the amphitheater, which will be on Jackson, right on the corner there. And it was approved by the Parks, well, not ready for the Parks Board. It's been approved by the Russ Cooper, and he's going to take it to the Parks Board, and so are we, to make sure it's all right to do it. And on the last thing was that we also we've had quite a bit of information coming from Monmouth, Illinois, which was the start of this town. That wagon train came across from it. And so Bob Edgar has got all the information. In fact, actually, he has got the list of people that came on that wagon train, and we're hoping that within the next couple of months that we can bring forward that, see if there's still some relatives in this town that came on that wagon train. So that was it. And the Planning Commission had a hearing, could not attend.
All right, thanks. Councilor Schinkel.
The Parks and Recreation Board met on September 12th. I was not able to attend, but I did review the minutes. The first item of business was the city's grant application to update the Parks Master Plan as one of 5 finalists under consideration for the funding, and the State Parks and Rec will make their decision at their meeting tomorrow night, the 19th. The skate park update, the work group met this summer to review the new location and agreed the new location would be acceptable. Matt Johnson, the city parks manager, is working with Dreamland Consultants to update the design based on the new location. And a meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 3rd at 5:30 at the site to discuss design elements. The Tennis Association, Steve Deptula and Tim Brown provided an overview of the recently formed Monmouth Tennis Association. The association meets at the Monmouth Recreation Area tennis courts to play in the mornings and the evenings. All are invited and welcome to attend. The group discussed what it would cost to resurface those tennis courts, and the range is from $170,000 to $175,000 due to the age and the condition of the court. There was also a request. The board reviewed the city's policy on naming parks, and the board recommended that they rename the amphitheater to Mark Fancy Amphitheater, given the time and effort that he put into that. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a motion on that, or a resolution on that. And that was the business that we'd like to cover.
All right, and Councilor Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, on September 11th, a special award was presented to PJ Armstrong. PJ is the Director of Operations at MyNet, and I'd like to read the release that came from MyNet. The award was given by Sid Mack and Military Outreach Coordinator for Oregon, and the employer support of the Guard and Reserve, operating under the Department of Defense. Brady Greggert, a MyNet technician and active member of the National Guard, nominated PJ, his supervisor, for the award. The award recognizing the supervisor, and by extension the employer, honored PJ Armstrong for supporting Brady Greggert in his duties as an active member of the Oregon National Guard, both on regular duty and recent extra assignment by joining his unit to fight forest fires in the region. MyNet also received a frame statement of support for the Guard and Reserve, signed by the National Chair of the, it's a long acronym, but the Outreach Coordinator for the Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, and by the Secretary of Defense. MyNet is proud of PJ Armstrong for having won this and received this recognition, and proud of Brady Greggert for his service and for making this public recognition of PJ possible. You know, as more and more pressures are placed on our National Guardsmen, it's nice to know, and I think it's a very appropriate recognition that MyNet is recognized for supporting a quality employee and a vital member of our Oregon National Guard. So congratulations to PJ, and thanks to MyNet and Marilyn for sort of providing this information. It's very well deserved. That's
Thanks.
it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And with that, are there any community announcements? Hearing none, we'll move to the city manager's report.
Yep, thank you. A few things. Power and light building, new building, concrete is going in right now, so we actually have some nice progress there. Finance department, they're focused quite a bit on audit prep. That's coming right up. And then working through the Acela system, which is the new building permit system. And true to form with any software, yes, it's not working right. And there's all sorts of things that just don't quite work. And then we flip it to the state and they can't quite figure it out. But we'll get there at some point, but it's been a challenge. Sidewalk inventory. We've been doing some good work out on that. We did have an entertaining one that happened where a person was out when got caught by the rainstorm last work and kind of geared up and got a report to the police department. There was a strange man taking pictures of homes and so we got to dispatch somebody and they're like, hi. That was good. Vigilant neighbors and everything. Speaking of mine, I did a KMUZ radio show last week about the Dallas expansion, so answered a lot of questions about the Dallas expansion. And then have the City Hall and Volunteer Hall RFP on the street as we speak. So you'll be seeing that in the near future.
All right. And that's it? All right. So now we're going to move on to a presentation from the Oregon Department of Transportation on our Highway 99 project.
Yes. And
good evening.
Let me say thank you for having me this afternoon. My name is Vidal Francis. I'm with the Oregon Department of Transportation. I am the construction project manager for the project that is underway under construction right now there along Hoffman, OR 99 Hoffman to Monmouth. And this afternoon, basically, I'll be just giving the council here an update as far as our progress and so forth. And obviously, this will be more high level, if you will, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions afterwards. Again, this is the Oregon 99W Hoffman to Monmouth section. From a high-level perspective, the type of work that's really going on, pretty much this is a paving project. We'll be starting to pave. The work will start just north of Hoffman Road and continue through the downtown area and get down to just south of Madrona. Type of work that's going to be taking on is sidewalks, curbs, all throughout that area will be redone. Some signal work both at Main as well as at Hoffman. Landscaping, drainage, and a little minor bridge repair, the little small structure that's just there adjacent to the police department, I believe it is, in front of it. We'll be doing some removing the AC that's on top of it, putting some waterproofing membrane above the structure to allow it to last a little bit longer, and then come back and repave it, if you will. We'll also be doing some guardrail attachments to the ends of it as well. This is just a schematic, if you will, of how it should look when we're done. Obviously, we're improving the traffic flow through the downtown area. We're adding that multi-directional lane in the middle, 2 lanes, one for north and south, bike lanes, 7-foot, the planter strips, and obviously sidewalks. And the picture to the left there is how we intend for that intersection on Main Street to actually look with the new mast arms up, with new signal heads and so forth. And again, this is just a little a glimpse of what, at the end of the day, how we plan to leave the location. Just a little update on the schedule. The project was bid on May 3rd, awarded June 8th. The contractor is James W. Fowler out of Dallas, Oregon, a local contractor. The pre-construction meeting, which some of us, I believe, Scott attended, was August 8th, and then the work began September 5th. If you notice, there was a little gap between when it was awarded in June 8th of 2018, as well as of August. That was because we had a little difficulty in the bids when it was first awarded. The first contractor, for lack of a better word, kind of defaulted or didn't meet the requirements for the bid, and so we moved to the second bidder, which was James W. Fowler. So there was a little gap in there for them starting. So they actually started a little bit late, but nevertheless, they're on the ground right now. The project is scheduled for completion December of 2019, so there'll be some work this year, and it's going to carry on through next year. And I got down at the bottom that the last series of bullets through the fall of this year, the summer of this year, as well as the fall and through the winter of 19, they'll be putting up temporary signal, some drainage work, and start the flat work. The flat work is pretty much your concrete work for your ADA ramps, your curbs, and so forth. All that work has to be done. If you probably notice right now, their temp poles are up, where they'll be putting up temporary signal right there at the intersection of Main and 99, because that obviously obviously, all that signalization is going to be coming down at some point, but this is preparatory to start getting all that work done. And then as we move into spring of next year and the summer and the fall of 2019, they'll be continuing all the flat work, all the concrete work, and then also putting in all the signals. And then there is, I think, one of the major parts of this project here is the rebuilding that needs to occur along 99 between where the police station is and just south of Madrona. We're going to be rebuilding that whole section right there because the substructure beneath the roadway is just not adequate for today's traffic volumes, et cetera. So that's going to be one of the bigger things we'll be doing next year, and then the paving and landscape work, and then we'll be closing it out with any punch list items. Just as a reminder to everyone here, ODOT and JWF, James Fallow, they're going to be complying with all OSHA rules and safety protocols, et cetera. And obviously, on-site visits, anyone that would like to visit on-site, we'd be more than happy to kind of walk you around. If you'd like to come see it, just contact myself or Scott, and he'll get a hold of me, and we can kind of, walk you through the project. But they do require, hard hats, safety vests and so forth, and closed-toe shoes. I also want to remind everyone, too, that OSP is patrolling the area, in particular when they're working. I noticed on my way in just a while ago, we did have, I believe it's the city of Monmouth, some of the police officers were in there kind of patrolling the area, which is really nice, but we'll have that added enforcement of OSP actually working there when the construction is completely active. Also, you'll notice, too, right now, there is some utility work that's still going on, but for the most part, most of it's completed. It's just, I believe it's Nexus who was out there, which is part of Minette, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Charter Communications. Thank you. Charter Communications, there was, they were late in getting their work done, but they should be done by the end of September. And that would be done, that would conclude all of the utility work that needs to be done there, needs to be done along 99, and James W. Fowler would be able to come in hot and heavy and just start moving things more aggressively. I also wanted to just show you, this is just a 3-week look ahead. Each week, the contractor gives us an update as far as what their schedule looks like for the next 3 weeks, and this is just what the schedule looks like for the next 3 weeks. What's in yellow is today, and as you can tell, what's in green are the certain activities that they'll be taking care of, and then, sorry, it's a little small there. I thought I was going to have a huge screen that everybody was going to see, but it is what it is. But this week, they're working nights, plus next week they'll be working nights. We're trying to minimize what impacts we do to the public that's there. And the night work typically includes from about 7, 8 p.m. They're out there doing their work, and around 3 a.m. they should be done. And that's just to start off. As we get more into the more heavier stuff, the nights it's probably going to go to about 4, maybe 5 a.m., depending on what our specifications call as far as them having to close up for the next morning. But there will be some work that's going to be taken care of during the day as much as they can, but right now most of the work is pretty much getting done at night. I do want to also say, too, that ODOT has done some extensive work trying to reach out not only to people in the general area, but also people coming through the area. So we've got a pretty strong outreach program that we're trying to touch everybody. I believe it was in August, we attended the music festival, I think it was. We was out there handing out flyers, trying to talk to the community to let them know that we will be in the area working and so forth. So we do have a website that's out. The link is up top there. And I do have brochures here that I can pass out for each one of you if you'd like. All that information is on here where you can sign up to get email updates of the construction activity that's ongoing real time. We are using some of the social media outlets too, to kind of let the community here at Monmouth know of the work that we're doing. One of the things that we have done, which has been very successful too, is we have an actual door-to-door outreach where we've actually, back in late August, we went out to all the different businesses along 99, one-on-one, to let them know that we're coming through and kind of get some of their input as far as what times are they're most affected or not affected. And I think one of the biggest business out here is the Burgerville that we've we've been working with, hand in hand, trying to make sure that we don't impact or minimize what impacts that we have with their customers that are coming in. So far, we've been on that corner, done some minor work in light of the utility poles that are going up, but nothing heavily such that it would impact whatever customers they have coming into their facility there. We do have events that we're trying to schedule depending on when they come, and we'll show another presence there to continually remind the community as you come in through the work zone, be safe, understand that we do have OSP patrolling the area, and if there's any questions, comments, concerns, reach out to us and we'll try to address those as the need arise. I also would like to say too that we do have scheduled for likely next year, depending on how the situation comes out, because next year is pretty much going to be when we're doing the paving work through 99, it's going to be very noticeable. So prior to us actually doing that, we do have a public meeting that we would like to have where we invite the entire community to come, see what days that we're really going to be affecting them, understand how much work it's going to take, how long we're going to be out there during the significant paving moments for next year. This year here, we're pretty much going to be in and out as we're doing some of the work, but next year is going to be more significantly noticeable that we're there. And that public meeting is likely to occur next year prior to all the heavy activity actually starting. And that's all that I have for you, unless you have some questions for me. Thank you.
Any questions? Royal?
You said, are you going to have another meeting before summer, or is this the only meeting till summer? Another presentation? Are you going to come back and work with us on when it might happen, when it's going, like, say, in April or something? I'm just...
If you would like for me to return to give another presentation, I'm more than happy to do so.
Well, I have one question and I read the bid contract when they sent it out, we signed, that when you're going to bypass the downtown area, make a diversion,
right,
that it was going up through the campus. Is that still in process, or have you changed your mind on that?
Well,
I'm just asking. I look at a 40-foot semi going up Stadium, trying to make those corners, and I'm still laughing, That's one question I wanted to get before they really started, and that was in the contract, and that showed us that was the detour when you started on the downtown area.
Okay, I know that we have, I believe it's 3 detours for this particular project, and the detours will really take effect when we do the full rebuild along 99. Right. And obviously, we're closing, I believe it's Carlton Street, Carl Street, I think. Maybe it is. At 99 on Main Street, 1 block to the east and 1 block to the west, okay? And I don't even think it's the full block, it's just a portion there so that we can get that full intersection. And so, and the detour routes, to my recollection, one goes towards, from Hoffman, come around, I believe, to the east, is it 16th Avenue, I believe it is, and then come back down, and then the other one goes towards that would be I'm sorry, I'm from Florida, so for me, the ocean is this way. I get mixed up on my east and west when I'm trying to explain it. So to the west here, we do have one route that actually does go through, and if I'm not mistaken, but I have to look at it to verify, it appears to me that it actually goes behind the campus, not directly in front of it, but I'd have to look at my contract plans just to verify that, and I can follow up with you on that, just to show you where that actual detour route is. And I believe that detour route is only when we're doing the rebuild section, when we have it completely closed. And I believe the contractor has a maximum day consecutive of no more than 5 days for that closure to happen. And then we're giving them a date between, I believe it's July 8th up to August 30th or 29th, something like that. Pick a 5-day period in there. That's the only time he could actually run that detour.
More?
I got another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, yes.
And I read the contract, talked to Scott. It looked like the major dig is actually from Jackson to Madrona, not from, so you're not going to dig all the area up from Church to Jackson, you're going to go from Jackson to Madrona. Is that right, or are you going to take the whole street up and dig it all down? I mean, I read the original
Yeah.
bid that we sent to you.
To my recollection, and without verifying with the plans, I believe it's from Jackson to Madrona.
Okay.
And again, I would have to read the pavements reports to see why they actually picked that location based on their testing and so forth that limited them to that specific limit, if you will.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? John?
Just a couple. You noted a bridge near in your initial remarks, a bridge. Is that the one that goes over Ash Creek? That's that major.
I don't know the name of the actual creek, but it's right in front of, or right adjacent to the police station. Right in there.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the only one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Now, will any of this include anything on the bike path bridge on that? Is anything related to the bike path on this project?
Not to my understanding.
Okay. One of the things that, the very attractive view looking south of, the intersection there with 99 and Main Street, what I couldn't tell is what, and it caused me to wonder if there's been any articulation and discussion with I believe it's a Carl's Jr. that's going to move on to that corner, their ingress and their in and out sort of deal. Are you coordinating with them?
I've heard that Carl's Jr. was moving in or somehow relocating that location, if you will. But I haven't yet actually discussed with them as far as them. I would understand that they were probably working with our permits folks, which would probably be a maintenance activity, if you will, as far as their egress coming in and out.
Sure. Well, yeah, I would hope so, because, if you do a very nice and it looks like that, you'd hate to have then someone come in and want to do something somewhat different based on their own ideas. So hopefully that articulation can be in place. And when you begin to work on the curb gutter sidewalk or whatever the combination is going to be, will there be any impact on the parking as it currently exists along 99? And the reason I'm asking, there's a lot of trucks that park in front of that Casa Burrito. And I understood that was going to become a no parking zone at some point once it gets fully widened, and I'm just wondering when that's going to occur.
More than likely, when it does occur, it's going to be next year.
Okay.
But however, we do have provisions in the plans or the specifications that says that if there's any city parking that's going to be impacted, the contractor is required to give, I believe it's a minimum 48-hour notice detailing what the impacts are, obviously what stalls or what parking locations are going to be affected. So there is likely that there will be some parking locations affected. Again, the length or the duration of that timeline, I don't have that particular number or length of time for you right now. And that's partly because, obviously, as we go through construction, the contractor has his plan, and we're holding the contractor to his plan to complete the work. And some of that plan, obviously, is not detailed out until as we move further on.
When will the left turn or the multi-directional turn pockets be actually constructed or marked?
Are we talking about when we...
From Church to Madrona, because there's going to be some additional, I call them left turners.
Right. Okay. The multi-directional lanes. Obviously, that has to occur after the rebuilds are complete, which would actually be next year again. But you're saying being marked, meaning striped. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. Well, it is, and pardon me for not being more familiar with the actual dimensions there, but we're widening that roadway to make room for that multi-directional turn deal. When we widen that, we're going to put in curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. Will there be, when they're done with this widening portion, will those left multi-directional pockets be in place? Temporarily, I understand, but would they be there? Or is that just not even going to happen? We're going to have a wider roadway, still 2 lanes, that's it. And then we'll deal with, the turn pockets next year.
Looking at the screen there, see that 14-foot lane in the middle?
Yep.
That's how it should look in the end. And I'm sorry, I don't have a plan view looking on top of it so you can see the striping, which if you look to the picture to the left there, it just shows that multi-directional lane turned into a turn lane, if you will, right at the intersection.
Right.
And so...
But will that not, something like that not run all the way back to Church Street? Which is...
I would have to look at the plans to see the limits of that multi-directional lane. I would understand, again, without looking at it, just near the police department.
Yeah.
Through the downtown area and through, I believe, down to Madrona.
Yeah.
Again, I would have to look at the exact limit, but the major portion where all the rebuild is going, because we're widening too, it should have that multi-directional lane in there.
Trying to figure out when you can't park in front of grain station anymore.
Oh.
Next year, right?
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a local watering hole.
I did read that pretty dang close, and there is no parking actually from Bimart clear through to Church Street on both sides when it's done. And it'll be a turn lane, because we wanted to get a turn lane north of Church, and it couldn't be done. And there'll be no parking at all on 99 after that's done.
And what I'm trying to figure out is when that no parking is
Whenever they get it paved.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thanks again for that report. We look forward to the work and another report.
Okay, yeah, whenever you want to be back, I'll...
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'll take a second and let Vidal get his equipment.
Should I leave some of this for you?
Oh, yes, I'm sure, yeah.
Okay, here you go. Am I allowed to go
So at this time, we're going to have citizen comments. This is a time reserved for citizens to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Maximum of 3 minutes per item, please. And when you come up, if you'd sign on the sheet your name and where you live. Anyone who would like to make any comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our business agenda. And our first item is to adopt a resolution in support of the trolley system. Scott, I believe this is yours.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so the resolution, as the mayor stated, is to support a study of a trolley system. So your very initial phases. So what we're looking at is setting up potentially, a trolley system that would go in between the two cities, through neighborhoods, different levels. And what we're looking at is trying to get funding for a feasibility study. So this was presented by Representative Evans. If it goes through, it'd be a partnership between the cities of Independence, Monmouth, Western Oregon University, Representative Evans' office. And so we're supporting getting funding so somebody could do a feasibility study to sort through where this would go. At this phase of the project, there's no cost to the city, it's just support. And then we see what happens. Lots of other projects are going to be out there, and then it'll have to be pitched, and we'll see what happens.
All right, so this is a resolution to collaborate with City of Independence, Western Oregon University, to secure funding for a feasibility study of a trolley system between downtown Monmouth and downtown Independence. And this would be Resolution 1874.
I'll start. I move to approval of Resolution 1874, been awake a little bit today, which supports a collective effort to secure funding for a local trolley system feasibility study.
And I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Byron?
Some questions. So what kind, I didn't see in there what does feasibility mean? Does that include need, necessity?
Yeah, I think the idea is need, is there enough need? And then it would also go through probably users,
Right.
who would use it, how it would get priced. It would go all the way through systems operations. How would you fund your initial getting the system in place? How would you maintain it? All those levels, and then try to figure out if it makes any sense.
And do we have a ballpark on how much this would cost?
I haven't heard anything.
The feasibility study or the trolley?
The feasibility study.
Yeah, at the meeting we had that one day, 35,000 was thrown out, but I don't know if that's accurate or not, but the pot of money is a lot larger than that could be tapped for it, so.
Yeah, I think
Initially, when this was talked about, we did a little bit of research and talked to some other organizations and found they've spent anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 on feasibility studies, so that's kind of the range.
I think when we looked at it, there was like $750,000 in that. So we're not the only people looking at it, so that's what I mean. It's a big open project it's going to have to be talked about a lot once it comes back, you know. But at least we're applying for it. That's what it comes
That state money is there waiting for us, and that's why we want to be first in line to grab it.
our tax money's.
At least to find out if this is feasible, if this makes sense or not.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's not going to make sense, not bottom line. None of these ever do. They simply bleed money. Public transit worldwide bleeds money, with the exception of a couple of major cities in Tokyo. So I guess I'm not sure what, I'm just going to disregard the fact that the reality that these aren't ever going to make money, or ever going to be able to sustain themselves. I mean, we're struggling already to keep up with our annual budget. And I understand the money's there, and that's great, but the reality is that, you know, feasibility or not, the likelihood of this being economically viable is just little to none.
So I'll address that real quick. One is that there's no cost to Monmouth. Is the whole plan, is it's never a cost to Monmouth Independence or the university. That it's all going to be state and federal money that comes in to support it. Per what Representative Evans has relayed to us. So that's the information I've got for you. Royal, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I was going to answer one back, because we talked to Paul Evans about it, is that money is there. It's our tax money, basically, to come back for the feasibility, but it can't be used on a road. It was designated as feasibility studies when it was passed at the last budget session, so it's either going to be spent there or go someplace else. That's what it amounts to. It's one of those deals.
And John, did you have?
I did, and you know, I think, to your point, Byron, I don't know, I think once we have a study that indicates whether or not the things, the aspirational benefits and potentials that this talks about can be met, then we can match up whether that is valuable to our community or whether it's not, and what the ultimate cost is. Just because it's free, you know, it's quote-unquote free money, doesn't mean it's free money. I mean, we're all paying that. So we ought not to look at it that way. But as I read through this, there were a number of things that I saw as potentially very valuable. And whether or not it can actually work, we'll see, but in the, potential benefits, second sentence, this would, and that's declarative rather than could, reduce parking conflicts around campus. We hear that all the time. I mean, our neighborhoods are forever bothered with that, business people. If this could become a viable sort of a commuter line, whether it can or not, that's what we'll see. The connection with Independence, to me, is a good one. And, I spent quite a bit of time this afternoon reading through the economic development information that was provided to us. And a fair amount of that had to do with discussions about transportation and connectivity of different elements of our community. I personally, I think it's worth taking a look at. To your point, Royal, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made before this is a go. But before we can do that, we've got to decide we don't know what the questions are, much less the answers on this stuff. So to me, it's a valuable project.
Any other comments? So we have a motion on the floor that has been seconded for Resolution 1874. Can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Counselor Belts?
Yes.
Counselor Silbernagel?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Schinkel?
No.
Counselor Scharmer?
Yes.
Counselor Carey?
Aye.
All right, and that motion passes. And so we'll move forward on that resolution. Next item of business is a resolution to adopt the employee handbook, and this will be Resolution 1875. And Scott, this is yours.
Yep, thank you. And can I bring something out first before you start, Scott? This is pretty detailed, what you've done here. We've been at it for a year and a half, and I get it 2 days before I'm to sit down. I've read it twice. I'd like to set this back another meeting and be able to really go over this and fine tune it. There's a lot of detail in here that I don't understand, and I don't think we got the time tonight to ask you 55 questions. And I'd rather come to you personally and ask you some of these. Pretty important to this city, this handbook is. And what I'm asking is, can we put it off for one more meeting so we can read it a lot better? I mean, there's a lot involved in here. I see things in here that don't make sense. And I need it put together, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know whether the rest of you looked at it or thought about it.
Yeah, basically, that's your choice in that process. We were hoping if we got lucky, you'd approve it, and then we'd meet our deadline for the auditor, but if it needs to go back a little bit, whatever works for you, so.
So, Roxanne?
Who else has looked through this?
Yeah, I think context, if I could just go through the basics maybe, then a discussion is that the key thing is the original handbook's 1990, and just a couple tweaks here and there. So what we did is we prior had an intern go through and actually do a side-by-side of the new model document with the old and try to see where, choices, where do you adjust or kind of blend if you need to. Key thing is that the document came from City County Insurance Services. So they've got their own, that's our insurance carrier, and for all HR needs, legal, everything. So they've got an HR staff and also the employment attorneys. So at a basic level, fairly logical that if you use their document, you're in good shape. I mean, these are the people that do this for a living. They're going to be defending any of your issues that you have in there. So we use their model. This has been used by cities all across the state, pretty much just with minor modifications. What we did was, as we went through, in a lot of cases, just deferred to the CIS language because it made sense. They're the experts, so just use their language. And if you're superseding something from 1990, you're probably okay too. Expanded equal opportunity policies, all the state and federal leave policies. We got the new, OFLA and FEMLA, they're very expanded in there. We obviously back in 1990 didn't have a cellular devices policy or anything like that. Email, electronic devices. Then we went back through and we've got specific things, like in their case, we have a residency requirement, and we had like a seniority provision, specific things like sick and leave vacations. What we did is just kept going on those. So what it is essentially, it's their core language integrated with basically status quo of what the city handbook's been since 1990. And what we did is we took a look at it. They took an initial review of it. I went through all the city departments. All the city departments are good. We took that document, integrated back to CIS. They blessed it, said we're in good shape there. So you've got a tight document that essentially is all the new current language with our existing conditions kind of built back into it. So the question is, just what we need to go through. I look at it that we've got the experts, gave us a good document, said it's in good shape. Just depends on what else you need. Obviously, if we identified any questions, we'd need time to go back through and check and verify, and then eventually we'd want to check back with them to make sure we aren't doing something that's going to get us in trouble.
Well, I would like to add something to the handbook. This is clearly is a blueprint, and as such, it doesn't take in any of the specifics that apply to Monmouth, and in particular the Monmouth City Charter in section 6.03. Under interference with administration, it says, except for inquiries relating to city services made as a private citizen, elected officials shall deal with employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the city manager solely through the city manager, and shall not make inquiries to or investigations of or give orders to any such employees, neither publicly nor privately. Now, last June, we had a fairly large group of Monmouth City employees here who didn't seem to know that. And I would like to have something in the employee handbook that refers to that, so they don't think that we elected officials are sort of hanging them out to dry and we don't care about them and we're not talking to them, not answering their questions and so forth. Perhaps in the section where it says that elected officials are to be treated with respect by city employees. Just a line in there about that.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't think that would fit in an employee handbook, because what you just mentioned
probably wouldn't, but
it
I
actually
think
refers to the council, how they're positioned and everything. I'm not sure how you'd fit that in.
I don't think it would hurt to just have a comment in there, so that they know it.
Yeah, because I guess the broader one is that they're supposed to treat everybody with respect, including elected officials, citizens, co-workers.
Well, I was just suggesting a place to put it. It can be right up in the front on the first page if you think that would be better. But I would like to make sure that our employees don't feel like we elected officials are ignoring them, that we really can't talk to them about city business.
John?
Question I had is this, are there any, I mean, I assume this is in concert with any collective bargaining agreements that we have?
Yeah, and that's an important one. And typically where that works is if you have a provision that you defer to the collective bargaining agreement for those employees. If you have basically like a silent area, then the city handbook would actually, then that would kick in. But vast majority of things are taken care of theirs. But like a good example is we've got, the massive OFO FEMLA section, so then they just use that for those issues. We set the rough, work week for how we do timesheets, things like that. But what you wouldn't do is if somebody, you don't get to cherry pick essentially. I worked in one organization where a couple unions wanted to cherry pick all the time, but it doesn't work that way, so.
But before I get into any specific questions, perhaps we ought to address Royal's concern. My sense of this is an administrative document, and unless there are something that is clearly outside and deflects from policy, existing policy, then this ought to be in the hands of of management. I guess I don't see us, I mean, I read it, you read it twice? No wonder you're sleepy tonight, holy cow. But, I read the parts that were, I thought were contemporaneous, that would be different than what we've had, that might be somewhat controversial, and, I have questions on that if we're going to get to that, but if we're not going to get to it, if everybody thinks, in other words, if we don't want to deal with it tonight, I'm not going to deal with it tonight, I'll deal with it another time. So, but again, my position is this is an administrative, a management responsibility, and it's our job to endorse it in that respect.
Yeah, and I'm with you on the management point, but it took us from 1990 to now to get this and rewritten. Just want to make sure we're at the right path and we're up to date on everything. And I have some questions that I really want to ask, and that's what I said. I got 2 days to read it, and that's it. I mean, and Monday and today was a gone day. Anyhow, to me, it's very important because our auditor brought it up. We've talked about it before, having a handbook. We want to be sure we put it on our website so people can read it, when they apply for a job. And that was my point. I mean, there's just some things in there that I just have some real troubles with, and that's on this. Okay.
Myron?
I read through it. It looks like pretty standard boilerplate stuff you see at most things, except for the accruals and things like that. It looks, it's not, the whole thing isn't terribly unique. The beautiful thing about a handbook is it can be amended at any time. And there's language in there that reflects as such. It can be changed with or without notice, blah, blah, blah. So if we have stuff that, if you have questions or we have questions as a group or issues with it, we can, I assume, Lane, maybe there's a question for you, we can direct staff to review that and then come to us, but I read through it, I'd seen a million of these, I didn't have any concerns with it. I am of the opinion that we meet the deadline and then we can have a follow-up discussion. If we need to change anything, we change it there, but we hit the goal.
You mean like set a work session and go over it at a work session?
Yeah, if there's enough people that feel the same way you do.
If I could throw out a couple comments. One, I think, just to emphasize, I don't know how we would really improve on their language. I mean, they do this for a living. It's completely compliant. There's not much you can do. And we've actually had a discussion that we think it'd be a good idea because, we have to adapt to it too. So we'd actually like to road test it for a while. So we were thinking maybe, 6 months now, 9 months, something, come back and say, hey, we ran into this. That was a little bit different than we thought, and then whatever, council comments would be, we could integrate it back at that point and take a broader look at it.
And I wouldn't even be opposed to, and at the next meeting, if Royal has questions about it or concerns about it, that we take, 10 minutes at the end of a work session, and maybe you can answer those questions or resolve them. And then if it piques people's interest, then we can revisit that but again, I think we hit the deadline. I think we
Good point.
make it, give it to the auditors, and then review it later, if we have concerns. I don't have any concerns with it.
I guess procedurally, just to back up a little bit, it'd be a little confusing if we adopted it and then a month later we're already changing it. I'd assume we actually get a decision that's going to hold for a while. Like I said, maybe 6 months or something.
But it's always going to be that way. No matter what this document it is, if somebody has a question for it, they can always bring it up 2 weeks later if they wanted to. They can always bring those concerns up whenever, even though we have a 6-month thing, if I have a concern about it in 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about it in 2 weeks, and I'm going to get those answers in 2 weeks. I guess I'm not as worried about that procedural thing as I am about let's get it to the auditors, because I don't have any concerns with it. That's just the view from us.
I guess what I would emphasize, it'd put a lot of uncertainty if the council is opening up our handbook every 2 weeks. And we implement something, then we're adjusting it, and then we're adjusting it again. That would...
Right, but that's the council's prerogative to do. Hopefully, we're not, we're not doing that.
I would highly recommend not.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
was gonna say, I made a pass through it. I didn't get through it more than once, but I did make a pass, and everything in my mind looked like it was right on. And, if you compare it to the old one, I think it's a definite improvement over the old one. So I'd be interested in hearing what the issues others are seeing in it, but I didn't see any. So I would be in favor of passing it and then letting it play out for a while. But I'd be interested in what the big issues were if somebody's got them, because I didn't see them.
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
just a question I had, I didn't necessarily have an issue with it. I was a little unclear because I read through the drug testing piece. It's all for-cause stuff, I understood that, but, we're defining drug in here as any controlled substance listed in the Schedule 1 through 5 of the federal consultant, that's marijuana. And we're talking about marijuana and medical marijuana, and then we're talking about prescriptions, and I was wondering whether or not prescription drugs, if it was a prescribed marijuana, if that's what that does. I just was worried about that age-old conflict with.
Yeah, and that's one that could occur. The main thing, even particularly with Oregon, is an employer's choice. And then so if we say no, it's a no.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
It's legal, but employers don't have to permit it.
Don't have to.
Yeah.
And the issue in the workplace is that you're intoxicated in the workplace, not that necessarily that it's in your system, but that you're intoxicated. And so that would cover prescription
Yeah, if we're
medication,
having
any
an
kind of
issue, then...
If you're unable to do your job.
And that's where you go through there, it's, obviously very sensitive, very detailed, the procedures to go through if you're gonna, get somebody.
Yeah, and then we were a little thin when it came to the drug testing piece. It didn't talk about what sort of test, it didn't talk about what sort of lab.
We go through a certified lab, and they've set all the procedures for us on that. And they're fully compliant with federal and state laws. Yeah, we just didn't have a whole lot in ours, but we just been following the practice of other agencies with that.
If and when we make improvements, it might be worth the while to identify the level of lab, so it's not, John's marijuana testing service.
Right.
Well, you say, but.
Well, you wouldn't take a personnel action, you hope, based on something like that. You've got to be able to back it up. So the lab report has to be sufficient to withstand a contest or scrutiny.
And right now, the lab that we're using it's a CDL compliant lab. And so it's not Joe's or Bob's.
Well, I'm going to move just so we can, unless there's more, sorry.
No, you got the floor, John.
Well, I'll move and then we can discuss. I move approval of Resolution 1875 adopting a new employee handbook.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Well, can I have my
You got,
back?
we have CDL employees in Public Works and in the Light Department, and mandatory is that they be drug tested, at random. How come the rest of the city isn't done randomly?
I wouldn't see a need to.
Well, that's a problem because drugs.
I don't think it is a problem.
I'm just showing you it's a drug. I've been in private industry, and it's amazing how long they've worked for you, and you find them taking drug tests. It's just that I think it's more equal all the way around if everybody in the whole city has a random drug test instead of just a certain percentage. I don't think that's fair. And Lane probably has a total different deal. I've been in private industry all my life, and everybody and every business I've been in is randomly drug tested, from the office person to the lowest peon on the bottom, even the manager and the owner of the company. And that's done because of the insurance. Because if you drug test somebody after the accident, you're already at fault, and you don't have a leg to stand on, because you were then liable for what that person does. I don't see anything about it. Every 3 or 4 months, have a random drug test. I don't see any problem with that. You already have it with one union.
So, Royal, can you address the council?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're the ones making the decision.
Yeah, okay, the same thing. I'm just saying, I've been in private industry, and we have to randomly drug test every place we've been. And every place I've worked at, you had to randomly drug test everybody. So if you only do part of them, And that's not fair, because you're saying, well, because the state law says only CDL, only can be, that's the state law. Why not do the whole city? It doesn't cost that much money, and it makes everybody honest of what's going on within the city. And I'll just use it for instance. I was with a company working for them, and they had employees that were there 20 years, good employees. And the insurance company said, you will come in and randomly drug. They had 16 guys that had been working there over 15 years that were in drug problems. And it was pretty simple, marijuana and stuff. I'm just saying, if you do part of it, everybody should do it. And that's just the way I feel. I think that should be in the handbook. And what about your base, Byron? Don't you have mandatory drug tests too in yours? Or?
We, with the prevalence of marijuana and the legalization of marijuana, no, because we couldn't, that would nearly extinguish our recruiting pool. And so we do, our concern, and it's probably like the city's, really is about people showing up unable to do their job. That's really our concern. So, I've been in places that do both, but at this point, I wouldn't necessarily get behind a random, and not only, I don't see the need for it, but random is also a legal term. And so that you have to take certain legal steps to ensure that it is random, so it doesn't end up getting challenged, litigated after.
What I'm trying to say is, let me finish back up. What I'm trying to say is, if you sign the handbook when you become an employee, and it says in there that you will be random drug, there's no problem on that day.
Just a couple things. We would be a rare bird to have random drug testing. Number one, that would have a huge impact on recruiting and ability for employees to want to work for the city of Monmouth. The second level that makes it really complicated is you would now have to go back through the unions, and they are not going to accept it. There is no way.
Did you have a question, John? Statement?
Comment. These are public employees is part of the deal. And as such, they have constitutional protections. And, among them is, the protection from a suspicionless search. And, that, I think we would be, that's the reason we would be out there. And now public sector can do that as they wish.
Private sector.
Our private sector, I'm sorry, can do that as they wish and as they deem necessary. The reason the CDL people do that is because it's a health and safety issue. That's the compelling interest. I don't see a compelling interest for the city to violate, arguably, Fourth Amendment rights of our employees without suspicion. That's my 2 bits.
Any other comments? So it's been moved and seconded to adopt a resolution adopting the City of Monmouth Employee Handbook 2018. And roll call, please.
Councilor Silbernagel.
Aye.
Councilor Carey.
Aye.
Councilor Schinkel.
Yes.
Councilor Beltz.
Aye.
Councilor Scharmer.
Yes.
Councilor Johnson.
No.
And that resolution passes, and we have an updated employee handbook. With that, we come to our portion for council comments. Any comments from councilors at this time? Laurel.
I have something. I would like to return to sidewalk repair, if I may. I did a little Google search. I put in the search terms research and sidewalk repair. And the first hit was a document from the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, and under their section safety for maintaining pedestrian facilities for enhanced safety, section 2.6 talks about funding. And it says that of the communities they surveyed throughout the United States, most paid for sidewalk repairs through the general fund. It says funding sidewalk maintenance from the general fund is typically done through a separate sidewalk repair and replacement program, or in some cases, several sidewalk maintenance projects may be lumped together and included as a line item in the capital improvement program. There's also, and other sources of funding is a gas tax. There are state aid funds from the state that can help with that. Special community-wide assessments, asking everybody to contribute. Sales tax, of course, that's a non-starter here in Oregon.
Oh, you could adopt a sales tax. Ashland has.
Not an escape with your life.
Yeah, there you go.
They also talk about property owner assessments, and it says the two common reasons cited by agencies for not addressing sidewalk maintenance through special assessments are the amount of time it takes to do so and political considerations. You know, do you want to vote for somebody who's going to make you go out and find a contractor and spend thousands of dollars to repair a sidewalk damaged by the city's tree? There's also utility fees, which I thought very interesting in the second chapter here, the second paragraph rather. It says, Corvallis, Oregon includes a sidewalk maintenance fee as part of residents' monthly city services bill, which also includes water and sewer charges. People ratepayers in Monmouth pay 80 cents a month, and that covers all of the sidewalk repairs for that city. They took the yearly cost to repair defective sidewalks, divided it by the number of utility customers, and then divided that by 12.
That was Corvallis, right?
That's Corvallis,
Okay.
That's correct. That's just like sort of down.
Yeah, no, I know.
the street.
I know where Corvallis is. You had said in there, you had said Monmouth charged 80 cents for
Oh,
sidewalk repair.
sorry, Corvallis.
Just was correcting that, so
There's
people don't
also,
think we're doing that.
And there's a lot of references here to different cities who have different methods of making sure sidewalks are safe for pedestrians without making homeowners pay for it. There's a section here called Innovative Funding Strategies, Improvement Districts, Tax Incremental Financing. And then it goes on to another section called Low Maintenance Design, where sidewalks can actually be put in that don't require a lot of repair. And then after that comes a section on trees, and I'll be providing that section to the tree board on Thursday when we meet. So I have copies of this for all of you. If you'd like to take it, a lot of good ideas for how to get money to repair sidewalks without having to ask our neighbors like Karen Wagoner to hire a contractor and then spend $4,000 out of her own money to repair the sidewalk. Thank you.
Any other council comments?
I just acknowledge Marilyn Morton, Commissioner, City Councilor for City of Independence. Thank you for being here.
Any other comments?
I'd like to encourage the city council to get out to the football game this Friday night. It's a home game, playing Crescent Valley at the high school, 7 o'clock. Go Big Red.
Any other comments? With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we will take about 5 minutes and rejoin at the back of the room for a work session.